Good evening, everyone. Just for a moment, Kathy's getting a list where people signed up as they arrived. So the purpose tonight is to help people gather their information and so forth. Some company. The deadline for submission, which we verified late Friday afternoon, is in fact this Thursday, the 16th, for London County as a county to submit its information concerning a residential deadline. Different. We didn't get confirmation until about 10 after 4 on Friday afternoon that it was one deadline and only one deadline. So the county has to submit, and that means the cities and towns within the county of London County have to submit all their data by Thursday to FEMA. And then FEMA will determine whether or not we as a county qualify for disaster declaration. And I appreciate all of you who came out tonight. Thank you, Alderwoman Miles and Alderman Wilson, for joining me. Others can come later and they'll join us on the council. But the purpose tonight is to get information to your hands. That's why copies of the information for the 1A assessment was made available on the desk, and more copies are being printed right now. Just as much the storm survey for business storms information, more copies are being made for that as well. We tried to determine if there was a separate application for residential, and we could not find one on FEMA's website. Not user-friendly, I'll just say that much. But it's John Solomon, and by the way, he won't be here tonight. He's helping his daughter move. Otherwise, he would be here. But it's our recommendation that regardless, residential or business, you fill this out, and if you can get it back to us by Thursday, we can then total the financial impact. That's what the county has to submit by the 16th. Yes, sir.
Where should that be returned to?
It can be returned right here to City Hall. And if that's a problem, call me or call anyone on the council. We'll figure out a way to grab it.
It's just a big building, lots of rooms. Which office?
Oh, third floor, the mayor's office is right down the hall here. Can be brought there. If I'm not in there at that moment, or if my secretary's not there, I could certainly leave it with the city clerk too, up until closing. But I would recommend before closing, because the totals have to be calculated and everything else. There was a sign-up sheet put out, Sparrow Fishbone. I should also point out, the city manager and I met with Bacchus Hospital. And if you live in the Bacchus Hospital area, you all I think you heard about, maybe saw pictures of what happened in the upper parking lot. There were about 43 cars that were basically wrecked by the floodwaters as it rose so quickly, their electronic systems. And Don Hanley presented that information to us, and we're beginning a regional study of that whole hydraulic area coming off the hill from the high school down through Holland Road and everything, and how that interacts with the system underneath the grounds at Bacchus Hospital, and then how it drains further into the Yantic Basin. We're looking for solutions to try to minimize flooding, particularly there, because it always floods there. It's a low point compared to where the hill is, and there are some other topographical issues that present itself there as well. Even the highway may be holding water back for some homeowners. I don't know, but we are going to be looking at that in a very serious nature to try to determine if there are solutions that we can do, infrastructure changes as we go forward. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take any time from you.
That's okay.
But it's your neighborhood, literally, with that big impact. So, please.
Okay, Beryl Fishbone, 19 Bliss Place. You're right. Bacchus Hospital is my neighbor. They are across the street from Bliss Place. And Bliss Place and that bottom of Harlan Road gets the impact from everything that's on top of the hill that comes down, that was supposed to be going over to Lowthorpe Meadows. That was the plan by the engineers. The water doesn't follow the plan. The water comes straight down. I'm 5 feet tall. Do the math, that's 60 inches. One of my neighbors had 56 inches in their basement. They're 2 houses down from me. We've been asking for years for help. We know we don't have a solution. But we have asked that there be a bigger pipe put in and that the old aqueduct system be reopened. That has not happened. And it's very, very scary. Bliss Place is there's only one way in and one way out. We're a dead-end street. We notice that our sidewalks are moving. We notice that our road has some issues. These are parts of the infrastructure, and we have asked for some of the money that's coming to do infrastructure to be diverted to help us out. We've got 9 drains in that area that are they're not enough, they're not working. We've asked that one of the 15-inch drains be replaced. Actually, it'd be really nice. 2 22-inch drains, one at about 100 feet from the other, would be a big help along with trade. As a city, you can't be afraid. You have to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Beryl. Fred and Christina Charles.
How you doing? Fred Charles, my wife Christina over here. We live at 125 Newton Street. And we also incurred damages. I didn't have 4 feet, but I had over 2 feet in my basement. It is a finished basement. Since we've moved in, we've had a few issues with water, primarily only when it's heavy like this. We don't have many foundation issues. Sometimes you get a little bit of seepage when it's heavy, 4 inches an hour or so, wintertime, that's fine. We've been holding off on putting curtain drains on our house because primarily where we would drain to, there's a stream behind our property that is not on my property that gets very high. I was able to go in there, clear it out, dig it out, follow it. It leads into one pipe that has 2 storm drains that go across the way, pitches back into the drain, so it doesn't even pitch the right way. Called numerous times, it's always got to take care of the hospital, and I understand that, but there's never any discussion of revisiting, coming to check it out. None of this is my property, but it affects my property and my neighbor. Putting the repairs on the house because if I was to put curtain drains, the water issue is just gonna back it up and cause even more issues. So I've called, I've addressed, I've done my part. We've stayed in Norwich primarily because we love my neighborhood, love my kids' schools, but enough is enough. I need an answer, not just pushed off. I'm a taxpayer in this town, and I feel like I'm not being heard, and I'm getting pretty sick and tired of it. This has been a huge impact. Literally, the whole bottom of my house got ruined. Every piece of everything got ruined. Water went above outlets. Had to throw everything away, so just, yeah, our cars got ruined. And this was, I mean, the water came up to my house above my thighs, so.
There was a car shortage, you got a car.
Yeah, so we just wanted to speak up because we've called numerous times and are getting no answers, not even a let's revisit this, let's talk about it. It's always, yep, can't deal with it right now, sorry. So I'd like somebody to come out and take a look at the drainage issue that we have in that area too.
That's the problem, is we have the drainage, but nobody.
Please to the microphone.
I was just gonna say, the problem is we have a drain, just it doesn't get looked at or cleaned. It's backed up and it backs right into our yard.
And the drain is not on our property, but everyone's properties collectively drain into it, and then it flows into
Back
our.
into ours. So if somebody can clean it, look at it maybe, do something that,
Yeah, it's gonna need heavy,
It
like,
needs to be addressed.
excavation, something's gonna happen.
It's
Like I
just-
said, I was able to walk, I'm not an engineer, but I can clearly see that the pictures are wrong. It's a small drain pipe, it's nothing crazy, so for that amount of water flow, I mean, it looks like waterfalls coming from the back of my house. You know, you can see it all the time, so I've addressed the issues with anything that needs to be done with my house, but I can't do anything further until that gets addressed, so.
Thank you very
we
much,
have a
thank you.
list of our damages
Do you
as
need
well.
a list or we do it?
Yeah, Newton Street.
125 Newton, correct? Yep. Go-
Do you-
Alderman Wilson, go ahead.
Do you need their list of, does
Yeah,
that
yes.
include?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Evening. My name is Walt Blanker. We're at 153 McKinley Avenue. Our concern was, we have a wall, my neighbor has a wall in the back, abutting our backyard, of a 7-foot cinder block wall. And as this rain accumulated on that Wednesday night, that rain built up behind his wall, and we watched it cascade over the top, and you could see rivers of water coming down the street, but that wall became a concern because what happened is the wall busted out, and a 7-foot surge of water came through our backyard, which is about from here to the wall. It's a short lot at the top of McKinley Ave, and it slammed into my foundation in the back of my house. It knocked out the corner of the foundation, and that water rushed into my basement, blew out my laundry room, and within 20 minutes, I had 4 feet of water in my basement. It was a finished basement, office, lounge, workshop. I came down and sat on the bottom of the steps and just heard and saw that water running through my laundry room, and I said, I'm homeless. When all was said and done, the fire department came out about 3 a.m. Great job, very appreciative. Took about 3 hours to pump it out to about a foot. And then with my own pumps and neighbors, I got it down to about an inch. Basement totally destroyed. Files, bikes, TVs, stereo equipment, washer, dryer. The water was so forceful, it lifted the washer and the dryer and turned them on their side and jammed them into the corner, destroyed the wall board. It's taken me about 8 or 9 days to pull everything out and to dry it out. I can already see the mold coming. So, I mean, complete loss. The house is livable. The water did not get up out of the basement, but that's the situation I'm in right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I recommend that people look at this form and then the information on the 1A assessment, because if you can provide to us even a rough estimate on financial loss, we need to turn all that information in as a city to the county, and then the county goes to FEMA. Tristan Talbert.
Thank you. Tristan Talbot, 9 Stetson Street. So we've lived in that house for only 6 months at
I'm
this
sorry.
point.
Could you say your street address again?
9 Stetson Street.
Thank you.
So we moved in about 6 months ago, so we're pretty new to Norwich, but our basement flooded completely above my head because our furnace was completely flooded, had to have the hot water heater replaced, electrical box replaced as well. What I've gathered from my neighbors is that that typically doesn't happen, but the storm drain nearest to our house completely clogged up. So all the other streets behind us, like Spring Garden and the ones off in that direction, all drain onto our street. And because of this storm drain getting clogged up, it ended up flooding our basement. We had the sump pump and couldn't do anything against it because the water was so high outside of the house. So I guess if anything, I just suggest going forward, maybe some more routine cleaning of the storm drains in that area. Just because don't want this to happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Talley?
Kristen Talley, 205 McKinley Avenue Extension. We had, so it was about waist high, about 3 feet in my basement. My neighbors who have been in the neighborhood for 20 to 40 years have said they've had minimal water in that area. When I looked outside around 2:30, 3 o'clock, when we were woken up by all of my stuff in the basement floating and banging into everything, McKinley Ave Extension looked like a river. We don't know exactly where it was coming from. I'm concerned, though, about the water that runs down the side of Reynolds Ave, that maybe that contributed to what happened to all of us. The rocks that NFA had put in their back parking lot were all down in front of our homes. We lost both of our cars, our boiler, hot water, basically everything that you would have in a garage and a basement, all my kids' stuff. I do have an itemized list here, but it's still ongoing. We need to have our retaining wall looked at because the water jumped that and went halfway out into my backyard. We want to have our driveway looked at. Just an incredible amount of water that was in our home.
Again, if you have notes, can you leave them with us? That would be helpful.
We have to fill this out as well? Even if it's for
Well, that's the form that goes to the reporting for FEMA.
Even for individuals, not just for businesses?
It says it's for businesses. Again, we looked the end of last week for a form for residential. They didn't have one on their website, so we're making this available so that we can get things documented.
Okay.
And I think the important thing is to get things filed in their calendar, which is the 16th, which is this coming Thursday. And then, so long as the information's included, we're getting a better picture of the total damage. Again, if the county doesn't reach a certain level, I think the entire county may not reach a declaration state, and that seems to be the way FEMA works. But if we don't give the full narrative, we'll never know.
Okay.
As much as possible. Yes, please. I would ask anyone to fill this out with your notes, get them back to us so that we have this that goes in to them as well as part of the county submission.
Okay. I'll make sure to do that, but I would love the city to come out and look at that water on Reynolds Road.
Yep, they'll do that. Others will, yep. Thank you. Patricia? Sorry, I didn't put my glasses on. Oh, yes, yeah, okay.
Patricia Flay Hive, 49 East Town Street. We've lived there for 46 years. The second year we were there, we had a tremendous flood, needed to change everything. And then we've had them over the years. This is really the worst. This one, there's a 51 East Town Street is a big white house setback, and we have a brook in the yard, and the thing forms a bowl that goes over to the brick house at the end of the green. They made out all right, but our neighbors on 47 East Town Street lost 3 cars. That's they've never had problems like that. They've had it in the cellar, but not the cars. We lost a car too. Over the years, I spoke to Director Walter Wadger, and Walter said, well, you know, and by the way, my garden cart swept from my yard over the road, which meant the water was across the road, over into my neighbor's high part of her bushes. She's 48 East Town. And so I said to him, you know, I've always, probably 10 times we've talked to the city about this. And one of the times I spoke to him, he said, well, you know, that's in a very old area, East Town Street, and there's a lot of stuff under the road, and there's a big crest over the road, which we know. And I said, well, he said, and I said, but as long as I'm paying new taxes, if you want me to send my 3 pigs and 14 cows to the Queen for taxes, I will do it. But this is what we just, and then, so anyway, my brother said to me finally, so Patty, are you ready to move? And I said, would you buy it? So that's where we are right now. I thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Mayor, can I ask one question?
Certainly. Yes, please.
Are more forms being printed?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just as we began, she went to print more copies of everything. And we can continue to make more copies if that's necessary.
Good. Question, Daryl?
Yeah, is there any chance you can put it on the website, the city website?
It was put on the website Friday afternoon by the comptroller's office with a link to the notice. That's what they told us.
Yeah, we didn't find it there.
You didn't, okay. We'll go back and make sure that that's done. Yeah, but we did, it showed up on the website Friday afternoon before we sent the notice out for the opportunity tonight. It's usually handled by Josh or Tony downstairs.
So would it be available tomorrow downstairs? Would it be available in your office tomorrow?
There should be copies out. Well, maybe she's back at the office getting more. Yeah. Well, they didn't have a residential application online, but I would still use this because then it gets filed, and that's what's important. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Ashan, please. Ashan Event.
Greetings. My name is Ashan Event, business owner on Franklin Street in downtown Norwich. And in our area, in our building, in the Sunlight Building, we experience about 4.5 feet of water. The majority of our machinery was underwater, along with all our inventory from our business. So we lost primarily everything that we can have. We tried to salvage a few things, and we weren't covered under the insurance for our liability insurance for our business. For whatever reason, it doesn't cover flood. So we weren't able to recoup any damages from them at this time. Right now, we've applied for some additional help from some community resources here in Norwich, but we haven't yet received anything from that. So with that, we have a total of our business here. You might need this as a spreadsheet for a main event group. And then we'll fill out the form and we'll do what we can to report our losses for our business. Do you need multiple copies or just one, Darrell?
Oh, I'll take multiple.
Okay.
That way I can get them as well.
Yeah, so currently we had to shut down our business for several days. We weren't able to assist a lot of our clients. And thankfully for a business partner, he let us use one of his machines to get some stuff completed. But for the most part, that's where we stand at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is Joey Herden, 42 Franklin.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joseph Herndon. I'm the owner of American Stitch Lab, 48 Franklin Street, right downtown, adjacent to Sean's business. I too experienced the 4 feet flood down in the basement. We lost a lot of industrial machines that cost, majority than what I got in the bank right now, I'd say. But we took a big hit, so we had to suspend our services. We were trying to do things on the side in order to keep our business afloat. But, and I just want to say, this is disheartening. This is really sad. Like, I feel bad talking about a business when everybody's talking about their poems. So I just wanted to put that on the record. That sucks, Absolutely, but being able to lay your head down at night is important too. But with that being said, I'm glad we're here talking about it. I see this damage form. I'll go ahead and attach all the forms and get it to you ASAP. But I think everybody took an enormous impact and effect of what happened. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Michael Edgar?
Yep. I come with show and tell, so there's some pictures you can look at. And I've labeled the attachments to the package. Yep. So Mike Edgar, my wife and I, Amy, live at 4 Leffingwell Place in Norwich. It's a deeded right-of-way. And I think I'm probably most famous because it's my yard that ended up in Bacchus Hospital. We have a deeded right-of-way, and the public utilities have been out because the state needs to get involved. There's a lot of infrastructure damage right next to the house with drainage pipes suspended in air. So it's the water that comes down behind the tech school that's washed out. And what concerns us is, we have the brook on the property, and we realize we're living next to Mother Nature, but it's only overflowed 3 times in the 30 years we've lived there, but twice in the last 20 months. And the storms are just getting heavier and more angrier. So it does need to be addressed. There's a culvert over the property, and the damage to our property comes over the deeded right-of-way. So FEMA's coming out tomorrow to look at the structure because Bacchus Hospital is involved. We did end up with about 30 inches of water in the basement. I've already replaced the washer, the dryer, the furnace. And again, I understand Mother Nature, and this was a significant storm. It's the repetition that's concerning. So it does need to be addressed. But I think the packet explains it all. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Years ago, there was an attempt to address the hydrology in your neighborhood, and that's why the retaining pond was put in when the high school was moved to where the college used to be. But clearly, there was so much water, that retaining pond, that failed. Could not handle what was happening in that short period of time, those few hours.
Brian Long has addressed that.
Yep. Thank you. Joan Bialowas?
Joan Bialowas, 55 Sherwood Lane. Certainly my story does not compare at all to any of the previous ones we've heard. I'm basically just here with my list of damages. 3 inches to 4 inches of water still took out our finished basement, but certainly not to the degree that everyone else has had. This is the second time we've been flooded. 11 years ago with the storm that was once in 100 years. We got flooded, put a big sump pump in. Now this was the storm that was once in 500 years, and the sump pump didn't hold, nor did the drainage. Now we've got to put in what's called a gravity drain system for $20,000, where they have to dig around the foundation of our house to ensure that no water comes in again. So I have my list, and I will send that all in. Thank you.
Thank you. But the application copy that we have here, I think it's important that it's filled out and signed by each person, because this is what they're looking for. The list, the other lists, they're very important, but if they don't see their form attached to it, I fear they will ignore it. Charity Robbins?
Hi, I live at 5 Stetson Street, and I'm actually neighbors with Tristan and Mary. And I ended up with 7 feet of water in my basement, 2 cars that were total loss, and right in front of my house, there's drains on either side of my driveway, which weren't, for whatever reason, weren't working. At like around 6 o'clock in the morning, something happened where they opened up and all that water drained within a matter of minutes. Obviously not from our basements, but from the street and from the cars. So the cars that were parked on the street in front of my house, those were all a total loss. The fire department did come over the next morning, and it took them about 5 hours to pump all of our houses out. So I have receipts of work I've already done. I have estimates of what needs to be done, but obviously I lost my furnace, my water heater, all my electrical, all the contents in the basement. And at this point, I'm going to probably need a restoration company to come in and help me, because there's about probably 4 to 5 inches of mud that's down there that I just can't get out by myself. I've gotten as much as I can, so those estimates are in here as well as pictures. So basically, when you opened my door from my kitchen to my basement, the water was all the way up to that door. So I have everything here. I'll leave with you guys. And I filled out that form already while I was sitting here, so
Thank you.
thank you.
James Brazina.
Good evening. James Brosina, 74R Russell Road. The R signifies rear building, not an apartment. On the night of the storm, it was about 4:30 in the morning. I heard some funny noises in my basement, and I realized that it was being flooded. I walked out, the water was almost up to my butt. That's how deep the water was. My entire house was surrounded. This is the second time this has happened. I believe it was like 11 years ago with the lady that just spoke about the last storm. And I had to wait for the water to my furnace, which is completely destroyed, of $7,500. Now, the first time this happened, FEMA took care of the bill. This in Norwich was supposed to put in a 9-inch drainage pipe below there to help alleviate the water when it starts rushing up, give it some relief. And as of yet, it still hasn't been installed. What has taken so long, I have no clue. I don't want to be going to attorneys, going through all this crap. I just want to know what the city of Norwich is doing about this. Every time it rains, even a few inches, I sit in my house shaking, thinking about what happened 11 years ago. Well, this time reality hit again. And I just can't live in this area if I have to be petrified every time it rains. $7,500, I don't know where I'm going to get that money from. That's all I want to say. Thank you, everybody, and good luck to us all.
Thank you. Those are the people who did sign up initially. If someone else would like to speak, please join us. And just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, James Hyman. I live at 24 Gleason Street. I've owned that home for about 6 months. I woke up on...
Sorry, could you say the street again?
Gleason, 24 Gleason Street.
Thank you.
I woke up around 4 in the morning and went to my bottom floor, which was covered in about 6 to 8 inches of water. We lost 2 cars. The whole bottom floor is destroyed. It's uninhabitable, unfortunately. I haven't had any estimates done, but same thing with FEMA. I called and applied for assistance. They said that it hadn't federally been declared a natural state of emergency. So I'm living at my mom's. at 27 and am unsure of how to pay for anything. I haven't had any assessments done. I don't know how far the extent of the damage is, but I have a list of items I lost, including the cars, and a letter that I had from 2014, where this had happened before, 7 years ago, like everyone else is saying, so that's all.
Thank you. Someone else like to speak and share information, please? Yep.
Hi, my name is Martin Casper. I live at 327 Washington Street, which is also on the corner of Bliss Place. 2 years ago, they said that there was a very large storm, 1 in 10 or 100 years, I guess, according to my brother. And while I was living there, it had flooded the driveway about 2 feet, destroying our cars. Then this past year, or back beginning of September, it happened again. I had about 2.5 to 3 feet of water in my driveway. Luckily, I only got about 8 inches in my basement. They said that this isn't a normal occurrence, but every time it rains, I always think about whether it's going to flood or not, whether the drains are clear or not. And it's always things running in the back of my mind that I have to keep paying attention to, and I can't sleep just normally. If there's a storm coming, it doesn't make sense. My property is the one that has the 15-inch drain on it. I've talked to Pat. He stopped down after Hurricane Henry, which luckily wasn't a very bad storm in our area on Bliss Place, but I haven't heard from anybody else trying to contact me about the flooding on Bliss Place, and all of the watershed from Mohegan Hill, if it pools up enough, it floods right over into Bacchus' parking lot. I think over the weekend, I was looking for new cars for my brother and myself, since we had lost all 3 of our modes of transportation. And the guy that was in the emergency room, he was actually our salesperson. He said they had to shut down Bacchus Hospital for 4 hours that night and divert everyone down to a different hospital. It seems like this is going to be a bigger problem in the future if we keep getting storms like this, and I just want to be a part of the help to fix this so we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to lose our hospital for 4 hours during the night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Hi, Mark Kalinowski, 5 DuPont Lane. I want to thank all of you for being here. This means a lot, I'm sure, to all of us, not just me. Lived at that house for 6 years. Have never had any water in the basement at all before. I have curtain drains. I have a sump pump. I have a backup generator because the power seems to always go out that bottom of the hill there. But this was just an overwhelming storm. I ended up with 38 inches of water in the basement. Again, the furnace is shot and everything else that we had down there. My wife runs a small business out of the house. The stock and everything that she had that was downstairs was all ruined. Had to hire people to come and move stuff out because a lot of the things that were even made of wood or particle board had just absorbed it all. So everything downstairs was shot. So I think my question is, I sent a cover letter and a list of things and approximations and all this other stuff to Mark Waters today. Do I do this other form that I didn't get? I rolled in a few minutes late. So.
Yeah, Mark is sitting behind you, but yes, everyone we need to have this form filled out as best possible, everybody to sign it. Again, this is a form from FEMA. We want to make sure they give due consideration to everybody's concerns and impacts. Again, it doesn't guarantee that the county itself qualifies, but if we don't create the narrative to assist ourselves, we're not going to even be considered.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I believe there
Go right
are
ahead.
some forms that get outside on the Table.
Yes, there are more of these out again on the table.
Good evening, how are you doing? My name
Yes.
is Michael Carter, I live at 22 Curtis Street, and I have roughly about 8 inches of water in my basement. Approximately 9 months ago, the fine folks at the Department of Public Works just replaced 2 catch basins directly in front of my house. There's a small amount of wetlands across the street also, but that proceeded to fill up. Around 3:30 in the morning, I woke up, and I was able to move my 2 personal cars and my work vehicle, which saved those. But my whole entire finished basement downstairs was flooded. I lost a lot of things. I still got an ongoing list. And I'll grab one of those sheets and I'll fill it out.
Please.
So,
And again, that has to be submitted by this Thursday, and I apologize.
Absolutely.
That's just 2 days away, but we verified that Friday afternoon, that was the only day of submission for this county, so that's why we scheduled this and tried to give a little bit of notice, not being Monday, but Tuesday.
thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Well, go ahead.
Bruce Costick, 33 Allen Ave. My sump pump even worked, first time in 10 years. So I'm here with my grandson who is 24 Gleason Street. And going over there as I waded out to his house up to my chest and my waders, I noticed that my eyes were even with, apparently when they built the Mohegan Park Apartments, they brought in fill and raised them up. And what they did was effectively create a bowl around his house. So his house is essentially in the middle of a little lake. It happens to be the lowest spot there. And my question is, Mohegan Park Apartments, every conversation I've had with someone, is a private entity. And they obviously are going to have to do something because apparently he got woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning with the residents of the basement apartments being flooded out. So I would hope that someone from the city would be in communication with them to perhaps tie into what they're going to do to rectify their situation there, because obviously they're going to want to re-rent those apartments. And they would tie in everything, which would also help alleviate his problem. So just so the communication doesn't get dropped was my concern. And as he said, he's completely underwater still at his house. And it's on a 3-foot, he has a 3-foot crawl space, and he had 8 inches of water in his first floor. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Tess Cariaga, 79 Mohegan Park Road.
79 Mohegan Park.
Yes. Yeah, it went, the water is like a river in front of my yard. It went to my basement. My basement is about, like, possibly about up to here, waistline. And then went also onto my garage. I lost 2 cars. And then my other car is still drivable. 3 cars that's parked in my garage. But at least the other one is still drivable, but I'm using. But the other 2 is, I lost it. And then it took the fireman came, local fireman came and helped us. And it took about maybe 4.5 hours for them to take the water out of my basement. My sump pump did not work. And I had most of my appliances, major appliances in my basement, my freezer, my furnace. I'm so afraid that my furnace is not gonna work this winter, and I have an 82-year-old mom, which is like have a severe dementia right now. So please help us. I don't know how to do about this, and this is the first time that I have attended this meeting because I'm not even realizing that this is available. Luckily, my friend just texted me an hour ago. That's why I ran it. Up to this point, I'm still sorting and cleaning up my basement. I didn't even touch my my garage yet, because it's just too much there. It's so overwhelming, and I work 2 jobs. So I feel so tired, but hopefully somebody can help us, and I would really appreciate the help that we will be getting. This is the first time that I've done this. It happened twice already. The first time it was not as bad as this one, but I think I need help.
All right, thank you. Again, I can't emphasize enough, take one of these forms, fill it out as best you can, and get it back to us, please.
Where do we send the pictures? Because I have pictures in our phone.
If you want to attach pictures to this, that's helpful, I think.
Is there anything that we could do it via website, so we could just send it? Because how do you want me to do pictures? Print it and attach it here? How do I do that?
We actually need the physical form.
Okay,
To help with the tally. I would attach the photos to this. And I'll talk to IT tomorrow, how we could perhaps get that all submitted online. It's quite an undertaking, though. Yes, Alderman Betancourt.
They could probably scan it in and send it to the city manager's office.
Scanning, yeah.
So scan it as a PDF and send it into the city manager's office.
Okay.
Yeah, you can look up the email on the website and you send it as an attachment there. I think that would probably get it done. And
I'm sorry, sir, but what is the website? As I said,
norwichct.org.
norwichct.org. Okay.
Yeah, norwichct.org. So so you can go there and you can look up the email addresses of all of us and the city manager and stuff.
Okay.
So.
But I can submit this now and then just go to that website and then submit the PDF file?
Yeah, sure, with all the pictures and stuff like that. Yeah, okay. I would maybe make a copy of that or something before you submit it or something.
Yeah, it seems like my house is like the basin for that Mohegan Park Road.
Yeah.
Because when I woke up the next day,
it's a low spot.
Because when I came back from work that night, it's about 1:30, I'm still awake because I came back from work.
Yeah.
And then it's still okay, nothing, seems normal. The next day, but before 8 o'clock, my sister woke me up and she's getting ready to work, but all of a sudden, said, how can I work? The water is so high. There's a car parked in front of my rent and submerged in the water. I don't know, maybe a passersby, and I don't know what happened to the person. So, but my cars, the other cars are like submerged in, our cars are submerged in water. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for being here tonight and letting us know.
Thank you for this time also.
Okay.
And hopefully, good luck to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, Richard, yes.
Good evening. So my name is Richard Thompson. I own a small apparel company downtown. We're in the same office in the Sunlight Building as Mr. Event, and so this is my first time really having to deal with this, especially as a business owner. So it's kind of my first rodeo. So it's kind of a lot to take in. I lost probably about personal effects along with material and things like that. So, and then there's also the material that I had when I was working on a personal community project as well. So there's that as well. So it is a big shock because a lot of that stuff a lot of that I funded out of my own pocket. So trying to just kind of bootstrap it and pay for materials and things. So it's a herder. So I mean, it's not my home like some of these people. But in a sense, it is still very difficult because you have to try to figure out how you're going to recoup that. And some of that material wasn't even mine, like I said. So we had to kind of figure that out. So I'm just hoping that I can get at least a little bit of assistance in trying to just recover that and just get back to square one. That would be great. So as far as the documentation, I have the form. I got it from over there, so I'll make sure I fill this out. I have some pictures that we can attach, and
But then I just wanted to find out, did I need to do like an inventory list or anything like that as far as like a total of like how much, like a itemized list of what costs and estimated costs and things like that, values? Should
I
that
think
be
the more
something?
detailed that you can provide, the more
better
accurate
it'll be.
we can create
Okay.
that narrative.
Yeah, that's not a problem. So I can do that. And you said that the deadline, it needs to be in
It's
by
the
Thursday.
16th.
Okay. So
It's
this
2
Thursday.
days, and I
Yeah.
apologize for that, but
Yeah.
they don't move their deadlines.
I understand, yeah.
That's what we learned
Yeah.
Friday.
It's a federal organization, so yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. So yeah, I'll do my best to get you as much, at least we'll have the form and the pictures, and I'll do my best to get the rest of it done,
Good.
so. But yeah, do we know, is there like a time frame of when we'll know whether or not any of us will be getting any kind of aid, or if the town will get any kind of aid from FEMA in regards to this?
Well,
Depend on the declaration.
It depends on the declaration, whether they declare all of the London County a disaster. I believe Fairfield County was already, but the evidence of the structural damage down there was so apparent, it was just
hard to
done.
deny, yeah.
With, and I'm assuming and hoping they're still letting individuals submit information beyond that. But
All right. Well,
very
thank you.
difficult.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Please.
Hi there. I live at 196 McKinley Ave Extension. My name is Marley McDermott. I've been at my home for 20 years. I have never, ever had any water in my basement that is filled up. I have water that flows in and flows out, and never any standing water. Last week, on Thursday morning, I asked my husband if he could just check the basement, and he said, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine." And he got ready to go to work, and I checked the basement myself, and it wasn't fine. We had at least a foot of water in there at that time. It seems like our many storm drains had failed. I live right at the corner of Coles Court and McKinley Ave, and all of Coles Court was flooded with mud and rocks and everything. But like I said, it's never gotten into my basement until this time. I don't know what changed or what happened, why it happened that way. We lost our water heater, which has been replaced. I haven't even checked my furnace yet because they told us to wait and let it dry out, and hopefully it'll be okay. And if I'm listening to everybody else here today, it sounds like it might not be. My cars weren't affected, but I lost everything that I had in my basement. It wasn't finished, so it was mostly stuff that I saved and my kids had put down there. So we've had to throw a lot of stuff out. I have creeps that walk around and pick through my garbage and drive by my house at night and stop and loot through my stuff. I have more than one truck bed's worth of trash to throw out, and I was wondering if there was a possibility that we could have some bulk pickup in the neighborhood. As I see, I'm not the only one that has piles of garbage in their yard. We haven't been able to get all of it out because my husband doesn't want to take it out and then have to move it to another place if I have to get a dumpster. We still have 2 dryers going, and I'm still at about 70% humidity in my basement, which is down from the 95% when we started. And I guess I have to fill out a list here of things that I lost, but I was hoping maybe we could get some kind of assistance with the trash removal without having to go to the dump or try and pare it down to 2 truckloads for a bulk pickup.
We will make calls tomorrow and deal with that particular issue. It's not pertaining to this issue now, but every homeowner, even those who rent apartments, are entitled to 2 free pickups a year under normal circumstances, but this is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It is extraordinary. So we'll look into that right away. I do know there's a scheduled bulky waste day coming up at the transfer station where no one is charged, but that's not going to address this, what we need to deal with here. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Anyone here has not had a chance to speak remaining? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Brian McCormick. I live at 11 Bliss Place. I'm the neighbor that Beryl referred to that had 56 inches in my basement. So I've lived in Norwich in this house for 10 years now. And that time I have had no more than a quarter shot back full of water in my basement other than twice. About 22 months ago when we had that big storm come through and I watched 3 of my neighbor's cars float away. And now a couple weeks ago. So 2 years ago, we had about 34 inches. In retrospect, I feel like we got lucky because this storm was 56. The last storm, we lost a ton of personal effects, toys I was hoping to pass on to my 2 and 5-year-old little boys. A lot of personal effects, pictures that were stored on shelves down there. I had stuff down there that was on 3 shelves off the ground, still floated away. My wife's entire collection of some autographed Bruce Springsteen books from her father that has passed on, all in the dump now. And it's just heartbreaking to, there's nothing that can describe that feeling when you open the door in your house and you realize that your house is barely livable right now. I mean, luckily for us, it's just the basement, but this storm in particular, my water heater turned into a buoy, broke off of the pipes. So on top of the 56 inches of water, I had a 1/2-inch water line gushing into the house. Got Public Works out there to shut it off. The shutoffs in the street don't work fully. I still had water coming in. Laurel Hill Fire Department came. They were running 3 pumps for about 2 hours to get it pumped down to the level just that they could get to the internal shutoff in the house, just to get the water to stop accumulating. All told, I think I've got $6,000 in actual damages so far, and that's not counting all the stuff that's not replaceable. All the food, we had a freezer down there that we just replaced after the last storm 2 years ago. That's all gone along with the food in it. So, and then as Beryl stated, it's, my job, I'm an engineer. I can look out, and my mother was an engineer, specifically in stormwater work for the state of New York. So I look out there and I can see exactly what's happening. Like Beryl said, we've got all this now paved property up on top of the hill there, the senior center, the high school, the middle school, all that area that used to suck in water, and now it just runs straight down the hill, right down Bliss Place, right down all Harlan Road, other roads in the area. I've actually seen storms where we get heavy rain really quick. I see water coming out of the culverts in front of my house because they're all daisy chained together coming down the hill. And the problem is, on my driveway, either side of my driveway has a full-size culvert. I look across the street, full-size culvert. Across the street from the lawn, a 15-inch pipe. In my lawn, a gigantic double-sized catch basin. And we still have a 12-inch water line against the side of my house. The issue is we need a bigger pipe for all those inlets to go into so that all that water can actually go under Bacchus rather than flooding Bacchus and get out someplace. So thank you guys for listening today. This is really hard to go through once. It's really, really hard to go through a second time. And I'm hoping we can get something fixed with our infrastructure before we have to live through this a third time.
We have begun that analysis. We met last week, and Backus is assigning some of their engineers to work with us on Public Works and NPU to get a real handle on that whole system over there, what needs to be done. It was over 3 inches an hour falling, and that system was not designed for anything like that. That doesn't happen often, thank God, but the intensity clearly seems to be getting worse.
It does.
You've noted that.
Yeah, right, twice in 20 months now, but not in 8 years prior to that. And then, a sump pump can't touch that much water to begin with, but on top of that, trying to pump it out to a foot of standing water, there's no place for it to go, though, it will come right back in.
Yeah. Well,
Just, I mean, from my mind, I mean, ever since they completed the Norwich Tech project, it seems it went really kind of downhill, so, I mean, I think the talk then was about water runoff and stuff, and when they did that project, so I think maybe, we should be talking to the state too, regarding, maybe doing something, more up there regarding, water retention, because it's obviously there's too much coming down. Kelly, we didn't really, I was on the building committee for Kelly, I'll tell you, and we didn't really, other than the area where the addition actually is, we didn't really mess with the drainage too much.
Okay.
So that wetlands area is still out there. So, but it's possible maybe that area may, it's possible anyway, I don't know. I'm not an engineer with that stuff. Maybe that's an area that we could possibly, do a little more with, but those are things that'll have to be looked at.
Okay. And as Beryl said, I'm more than happy to let you tear up our lawn if it'll help.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to tear it up. I think part of the problem too is that you need, if you have an outlet like that, where the pipe isn't, large enough to accommodate, even if you enlarge it, if the pipe downstream, so to speak, isn't big enough either, then it's just going to back up and you're still going to have the same problem. So it's got to have an outlet somewhere. And I think it goes to the whole stormwater separation issue and other problems. So obviously it's going to be a complex issue. So
definitely cleaning out the basins as well. The one basin on the side of my driveway, Public Works stopped by. They said it desperately needs to be cleaned.
Did they?
It's maybe 18 inches deep right now.
They're on a 2-year program now, right?
There's a rotation program assigned to look at all of them citywide, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe, I know we were doing it on an annual basis a number of years ago, and then they found that they really didn't need, but maybe we need to take a look at certain areas like Bliss Place, say, on an annual basis.
Yep.
So
I know when it rains.
Every little bit helps. It's that much less that would obviously be in your basement,
There is a drain that runs under the road that's just past Harland Avenue, I think it is. Yeah. And that is always assigned a staff every time there's heavy rain. They go and make sure that it's clear right there at that juncture. But you can't stand there all day long and watch everything flow down. The amount of water that retaining pond that was new when the high school went in up there clearly failed. That was overwhelmed itself. And then it may have contributed to the problem because it was holding water back and then it just released. I don't know, but we are looking at the whole thing. Alderman Wilson?
Sitting on the Public Works and Capital Improvement Subcommittee, one of the things, thanks to Beryl from, at this point, 2 months ago, the rainstorm that we had then, she brought forth some of the issues. And we've had a long discussion as a committee as to some of the needs just within that neighborhood and the fact that even far over, the water seems to come down and make its way down Bliss Place. So I think, there have been a lot of conversations. I think the bigger issue at this point is trying something to stop what's currently happening from happening. I think that's the bigger piece. I mean, we've talked about the Norwich Tech retaining pond and some of the other drainage that was put in, but the fact that there is a lot of small streets and whatnot, even behind that area, along with the wetlands and wooded areas, that all of that water is collecting on Bliss Place. We had this conversation, and I think at this point, Brian Long and Patrick McLaughlin have some ideas, and I think we just have to sit down and really put something together to get it fixed, because that's been one of our hot spots for some time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Beryl, come back up. You don't have to.
I can help with some of this. When it comes to the cleanups, every household is entitled to 2 bulky waste pickups.
Right.
The problem with pickups after a storm is not only do you have just household stuff, but we also have some of the more spare wood parts of building. They call it construction, demolition. Nobody will take that.
Right.
They won't take that in a bulky waste pickup. So if we could, and for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, I don't have access to a truck. So I pile it into my car and bring it up to the transfer station, 1 carload at a time. I work, so I'm only available on Saturday morning to run it up there. Maybe something could be done to help us out, even if it's a series of dumpsters that are put on sites and say, you know, you can bring your construction materials to that site. That would help. You might be overwhelmed with stuff, but it might help, especially if you know the areas. The other thing is, maybe if we had a map of the city and we could see where these hot spots are and how we're all related to one another, maybe we can help. I didn't say we could solve it, but maybe we could help. Thanks.
Thank you, Beryl. Does anyone not have a chance to speak to us, please? Come on, Brian.
Yeah, well, he's gonna give the.
Yep. Good evening, Brian Kovalars, 16 Hobart Avenue. Initially, when I came here, I didn't come up here representing myself, but a neighbor of mine. A lot of people here in the room have talked about flooding. Up on top of that hill, we had wind damage. My neighbors, during the first storm, Henry, my neighbor lost a bunch of his garage roof. So we put a tarp up over it. And what happened during the second storm? That was ripped apart and gone. I have a picture of that for you folks. Myself, I just had some down limbs, a little bit of molding around the cupola is gone, and a nice big limb took out the back window of my Beamer. I have absolutely no idea how much electrical damage was caused by how much water went in. Still trying to get that dried out a bit. But just a couple of other thoughts that go along with this as I listen to everybody else. I made some quick notes. Beryl can verify this, but if I'm not mistaken, the problems over there have been identified for over 40 years. I understand there were articles in the Norwich Bulletin with photos that long ago. That's too long to end up trying to develop a solution. We're talking about 100-year storms most of the time now. Hurricane of 38 is under that. So is Hurricane Gloria from 35 years ago, or Hurricane Bob from, 13? And now here we had 2 storms in rapid succession with each other. I would say that we're ramping up, just from the looks of it. Now, I'm glad that some of the people brought up some of the solutions. And of course, up on the hill, our losses were very light compared with what they've been dealing with. But we need to do a better job as a city in communicating this out to the public. We have 5 days since the Friday date. And here we are holding this hearing, the form's available, and there's only 2 days left. We need to be able to do better communicating this, because for everyone here, I would suspect that there's another 50 households that were impacted that don't even know about it. They might not be on Facebook, which I guess is the most popular way of disseminating information. That needs to change. The other thing is that even though it doesn't take care of the losses, we've brought this up during some of the other recent public discussions. One of the areas identified within the ARP funding that is allowable is for things like sewage, is for things like drainage, is for things like things that go into the watershed. We do have millions of dollars still available that could be used to help implement solutions to this, so that this way, the next time a storm comes in, we don't have a room full of people telling you about the losses that they incurred. Prevention will be our best ally in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Good points. Anyone else like to speak to the council? It still remains. All right, we're going to work to get all this narrative put together and get that information in. It will go through John's submission that goes to the county, which then goes to FEMA. But if you have neighbors who aren't here, that you know them, that they suffered some kind of loss, please knock on their door, tell them there's still a window of opportunity so that we can include their issues in this large report. The city is submitting things dealing with bridge abutments and road damage and things like that, but we want to know what is happening throughout the whole community. I mean, from the discussion, I see 4 neighborhoods clearly that repeatedly get those kinds of issues. In fact, the way they classify floodways now, that's where you have high velocity water. Doesn't mean water's present always, but that's where it occurs at flood stage times. And your neighborhoods are matching up with those floodway designations that we know of in the city. So we have a lot of work to do. Yes, Alderman Wilson.
Just a small question. Have we reached out to Courtney's office and whatnot about any help or coordination to this? You know, I know that they're very tight as far as the deadline, but knowing that some individuals are dealing with, of course, 2 storms, and although, you know, the other one may have been a little much more minor, and the impact that a lot of this storm is still having with people cleaning out, have we reached out to his office to lobby and advocate for some additional time for some families that may not make this Thursday deadline?
We called Joe's office on Friday, and we expressed what we were looking for. We were looking actually for assistance to get information out of FEMA, particularly for residential loss. We have not heard back yet. Again, it was Friday that we made that call. I want to be fair to them, but they have been alerted, and we'll follow further calls to them to involve them locally. Yeah, we will do that.
Thank you.
Yes, Mark.
Mark Waters, Deputy Emergency Management Director. I just wanted to kind of answer a couple people's questions, some of his comments that he just made also. So this, as you know, Thursday is the preliminary deadline, which is basically for the entire city and any information we have to present our case to get a disaster declaration. Once we get that declaration, if we get that declaration, then there's a lot more work that goes into you know, getting people the help that they need. It's certainly been heart-wrenching the last week and a half here, meeting with people. I've met with over 80 people that have had damage. Either I've been on the phone with you, I've been at your house, I was working the whole night of the storm and at people's houses. It's tough because you want to help them right now, and I get that. And hearing all these stories, you know, it is heart-wrenching, and I just want to let the families know that we're doing everything we possibly can to get you the help. And I applaud all of you for being here tonight to, to share some information. I've gotten, when I went through the list here of everybody that spoke, I have information from 18 out of 23 people already. Where did I get that information from? Either I met with you, I talked to you on the phone, or the fire departments, when they were out that night and responded to about 80 calls over the 12, 14-hour period, I had them get as much information as we could. And one of the key factors, believe it or not, in this particular storm that's I guess going to help us in a way for disaster declaration, hopefully, is the fact that we're over the number of 18. What does that mean? 18 inches of water. Right. Because what happens is FEMA decides whether or not you have minor flooding or major flooding damage by the number of 18 inches. And some of that has to do with, the structural components. Obviously, if your house got swept away, then that's, a total loss. That's a little different. But major damage is over 18 inches of water in your house, and certainly, all the components play into that, your furnace and your heating system and all the structural components and floors and everything else. So the fact that we have right now over 250 pictures just of residences of the damage, we need as much as you can give us. And even if you can't get it to us, as long as we have your address and your information and you fill out that sheet and you get on the list, this is the preliminary stages. When we get to this stage, hopefully we get a declaration. Now we're going to meet with you personally. We're going to get all the information as to whether or not insurance has covered anything. And in most cases so far, the people that I've met with, I haven't met with one person throughout this recovery that said, yeah, my insurance company is going to cover everything that I just lost in my basement. So, that's a tough thing to hear for anybody, as a homeowner, or not. It's a tough thing to hear. 24 Gleason, I was at that call with, watching 2 cars underwater and thinking we were going to have to get them out of the house with a boat. There are a lot of situations in this storm that, yes, this is a historic storm for Norwich, and the amount of damage is absolutely incredible. And I realize that, Bacchus, I don't think there's been that many cars underwater there before, and certainly the neighborhood that's adjacent to that, I don't think has seen it this bad. I know they've seen it bad before. So this certainly was a historic storm, but I just wanted to share that with you that, we're getting as much information as we can. Anybody that I've talked to, either on the phone or met with in person, or you had calls to your houses, because I have all the reports, I have everything. We're doing everything that we possibly can to get people help. And I realized that, I was in a guy's house the other day, I won't say where, the guy's pleading with me to condemn his house. Now, even as a certified fire marshal, I don't have the power to do that. And his concern was about mold, and his concern was about he couldn't breathe. And, talk about wanting to, give him my wallet and say, here, go stay at the hotel. I mean, these are tough, really tough situations to deal with. So I have empathy for these people, and there's certainly a lot of work that's still got to be done. And hopefully, we're going to have the right amounts. And that's what it has to do with, unfortunately, is that, as the mayor said, you have to have so much damage per county, so much damage per the state, and then it's up to FEMA whether or not, yes or no, and we can get people the help that they need. So we're doing everything on our end that we can. I hope that message gets out to people, and I realize that, the stuff with the debris and all that stuff, there's people working on all that stuff. So hopefully this answers some questions, and I wasn't going to speak, but it's tough not to with, hearing that everybody's been through what they've been through. So,
well, I thank you for being here, and I thank you for participating. Yes.
I just
Go
have
ahead, sir.
one question. I know several people asked the question of, we have the deadline on the 16th preliminary.
Yes.
How long do you think sometimes it will take for them to come up with a decision as to whether a declaration will be given or not?
The ones that I've been involved in, some of them have been 2 days, some of them have been 2 weeks. I'm hoping on the 2 hours, but really it's up to them. I mean, and this is purely my opinion, but the damage that's been done here certainly justifies it. I don't think it's a question, but it's not up to me, unfortunately. But I've been in this business a long time, and I think that certainly for our area anyway, New London County, I mean, if you take, besides the residences, if you take Comfort Inn, all right, nobody brought that up here tonight,
Right.
but you're looking at $1.5 million worth of damage just there. That's significant damage. You know, and FEMA looks at deciphering through this paperwork is really challenging at times, and it's not always user-friendly, but it's absolutely necessary, and that's, you know, that's kind of been one of my passions the last week and a half here is to make sure that this gets done right, because I've seen it, and the damage is unbelievable. I mean, you know, in a hotel, it's a business, you know, okay, it's not somebody's house, but it's a business, and if you walk through there and see the damage there, your eyes are going to pop out of your head. I mean, it's that bad. So, you know, and not only that, to hear the stories and how they've been affected with COVID and everything else, you know, everybody's been through a lot in the last, you know, year and a half here or so. So, you know, any help that we can get people is going to be good. So, to answer your question, I hope it's 2 hours, but, you know.
No, and the reason
just don't know, you know.
No, and the reason I asked that question, you know, I want, as we're trying to do our best here to not only listen, but also give people the information we have, just given the realistic piece that, you know, as soon as we know the next steps and answers, once that decision's made, we'll do our part to get the information out. And as they've said, that the better communication to peace. We'll do everything, of course, we can, but I know you're on the front lines when it comes to doing this work right now. So, you know, I figured I'd ask that question, but we appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Yep.
If there's no one else at this time, we'll stop. But again, if you have neighbors and they weren't able to get here, please let them know about the opportunity to get in the narrative, because that's what we have to do, build that argument to meet their standard. Thank you very much for being here.